is we like to hear from y'all a pretty frequent amount. Like my DMs stay open like 7-Eleven. And I put out a question to y'all on both those platforms, on Instagram and on Twitter, and said, what would be the most surprising headlines for you that we're going to get during this college football season? Kind of a call your shot, if you will. And so y'all answered in full force. We got great questions from both Twitter and from Instagram. And we're just going to kind of read those off here and break them down. And what would they mean? How likely are they? So it's kind of a fun exercise to see where we stand before the college football season. So Johnny Rockets on Twitter, which is a elite user handle, by the way, he says Graham Mertz is going to lead college football in QBR, and the Gators are going to be 7-0 heading into the Georgia game. Now, the Graham Mertz QBR thing is a little bit harder for me to buy into, and the Gators being 7-0, yeah, this would be surprising, without a doubt. You are true to form here, Johnny Rockets. You are right on the money. It would be surprising, no way around it. But if it were to happen, I don't think we look at Graham Mertz and what he's doing on the football field. I don't think we look so much at how Florida's playing offensively. To me, if Graham Mertz is playing well, that means he was set up in good situations. That means that offense is probably not starting within their own 10 a whole lot. It also means they're probably not having to play from behind as much as they did a season ago, maybe. So for me, I think if this happens, you're getting tremendous returns from your defense. Everything we've said about the depth, everything we've said about Austin Armstrong, they are balling if they are 7-0 and if Graham Mertz is playing well. Because if Graham Mertz is able to just kind of let the game come to him, that means the defense is holding it down. Where you could run into trouble is, hey, we're down 14-0 at the second quarter. We got to find a way to start answering scores here. We got to get outside of ourselves offensively. So if Graham Mertz is balling, it means the defense is probably balling, and this whole thing is working in a complementary fashion, and life is good. Now, if they were to be 7-0, again, that's a very big ask, but it's college football, so let's break it down. That would mean they would have to go 4-0 in these games: at Utah, Tennessee at home, at Kentucky, and at South Carolina. It's a lot to ask. Is it impossible? By no stretch of the imagination. Is it likely? Not so much for me. Now, if they were to go 7-0, let's zoom out a little bit. 7-0 going into Georgia, got the world's largest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville. It's going to be a scene in itself. What are we saying about Billy Napier if they're 7-0? Forget the rest of the schedule. Forget they play LSU. Forget that game against Georgia. Like, if they were to be 7-0, one, they've already hit the over in Vegas. They've surpassed that 5.5 win mark the first 6 weeks of the season. And Billy Napier, how much chatter was around him being the right guy for the job and what he's going to do at Florida, what he hasn't done at Florida, like all that chatter, you just take the volume knob and you crank that thing all the way down. All the way down. Because at the very least, if you were to lose out, I mean, there's probably some more chatter around that, but you'd be 7-5. You'd have something to pitch on the recruiting trail going forward. And news for y'all, Florida's already hot on the recruiting trail. And I know y'all already know that, but think about what this would do for them if they were to go 7-0 through the first half of the season. Like, that would be enormous for them. That would be straight up rocket fuel for Gainesville. So is this likely? No, but there is enormous ripple effects that could come from this kind of situation happening by nature of what it would require and by nature of what it would mean on the recruiting trail and for Billy Napier. Braxton, or BCutch07, as he's referred to on Instagram, got at me on Instagram, and he brought another surprising headline out for us. We've prefaced this a little bit actually on this show. He says South Carolina upsets Georgia, at Georgia, mind you, and they go ahead and jump on that elevator all the way into the top 10 of the college football rankings. Sheesh. I mean, can you imagine if this were to happen? If South Carolina goes to Athens, Georgia, and takes down the two-time national champions, there'd be a lot that would have to happen. And when I was thinking about this, the most simplistic way to break this down in my mind is it would mean that some huge variables that we just have no idea about right now showed themselves in this game. And what those could be, I think the first place you look is, okay, what's new in this game for Georgia? Because the roster is, to be real, head and shoulders better than what South Carolina has right now. It's not knocking South Carolina. Kirby Smart's just been that dude on the recruiting trail. Okay, so what would have to go wrong for them? I think the new piece with Mike Bobo and whoever your new quarterback is, it's going to be Carson Beck, there would have to be some real surprising issues for them. And I think that would probably show itself in the form of turnovers and not being on the same page. And maybe you're not taking South Carolina seriously. Like, it is a dumpster fire, probably a dumpster fire early if you're Georgia and you end up dropping this game to South Carolina at home. The other part of that, I would imagine that something in Georgia's run game just isn't clicking. And maybe it's South Carolina stepping up in a big way. Maybe Big Tonka Hemingway kind of has his way up front and has just a Superman kind of day. But they allowed 200 yards rushing last year. A game did South Carolina. That's the big part you're worried about for this defense. Georgia ran the football. I think they were right around over 200 yards a game. So I would imagine Mike Bobo is going for a more finesse style in this game. They think they can throw it around the yard, and Carson Beck maybe has a couple of errant throws, 2 picks in the first half. Whoa, Nelly, what's going on in Athens? On the other side of things, though, for South Carolina, I think you see November Spencer Rattler show himself. And you say, okay, what we saw against Tennessee, what we saw against Clemson from Spencer Rattler, that's real. That wasn't just right place, right time, right scheme, right throws. No. That's like, hey, Spencer Rattler is that dude now. He's clicking. He's got it. This is who he is. And I would imagine Juice Wells, if they were to beat Georgia, has probably north of 150 yards receiving in that game. Like, that's probably what it would take in my mind for South Carolina to end up beating Georgia in that game. So the big picture, though, if South Carolina takes down Georgia at the crib, what are we saying about Georgia? What's going on with the offense? Hey, they had more talent and they lost at home. Like, what is up with Georgia? They got a real look in the mirror kind of moment for them if they want to win the SEC and get back to the college football playoff and go for a three-peat. Three-peat, very difficult to do, mind you, as Kirby Smart and company knows. But if they were to drop this one early in the year, real gut check time, real look in the mirror time for the good people in Athens. Now, for South Carolina, though, Spencer Rattler automatically, you would have to imagine, jumps way up in the power rankings for the Heisman Trophy. And there's a long way to go till you get there from this game. But even more for South Carolina, like, if you beat Georgia at home, what can't you do? Look at the rest of the schedule. At Tennessee, you got Clemson. Is there a tougher game on this schedule than at Georgia? Now it's college football, so I'm not saying we get South Carolina, the version they got in that game, every single week, but you got to feel differently about Shane Beamer and company and what they're going to accomplish in 2023 should they slay the Dragon in Athens that third game of the season. So I'm not predicting it, far be it, but if this were to happen, it would be a very interesting week following in both Athens, Georgia, and Columbia, South Carolina. Now, we got another question from y'all, another headline from y'all, kind of in this same vein, and I think the username will make a lot of sense as to why we got this kind of question. It says, the user for this, we'll restart that. Vols fan number 1 says, Georgia quarterback room is in limbo after a shaky start. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that we're thinking that the South Carolina game, at worst for Georgia, a little bit shaky for the quarterback room, given this headline, that's what we're saying. If the quarterback room starts shaky, my question isn't the quarterback room. My question is, what's up with the offense? What's up with this new approach under Mike Bobo? It must be a new approach because what we had last year, schematically, was second to none, in my opinion, under Todd Monken. Like, we must have gotten away from how we're executing there. Now, the good news for Georgia is the schedule is not daunting, so they're going to have some time to acclimate here and kind of find their footing and figure it out. Remember, they looked shaky against Missouri, looked shaky against Kentucky. Didn't matter when they were hoisting the national title trophy. Also, excuse me, getting choked up just talking about college football. Also, if you have to make a change in that quarterback room, you feel pretty good about who you have in there. I mean, Gunnar Stockton, 4-star guy, Brock Vandagriff, 5-star guy. If Carson Beck can't get it done, it's not like some substantial drop-off from a talent standpoint. Like, you got some dudes in that room. So if it doesn't go as planned early, you can probably pivot without too much issues, in my humble opinion. But the bad news would be, what's going on, man? This isn't supposed to be hard. Like, this is not supposed to be a difficult job playing quarterback at Georgia because of everything they have around them. The defense, stocked with dudes. 70% of the production is back from that national championship defense. Tons of weapons. Brock Bowers, Dominique Lovett, Ladd McConkey. You got dudes throw the football to. The run game's solid with Dejan Edwards. Like, we should be in good shape here. Everything is built out around us at the quarterback position to be successful. So what's the issue? Well, again, going back to the issue, I'd be concerned with the apparatus and the system that Georgia is running should the quarterback not be successful. Now, again, I do not anticipate this happening. This is not my prediction, but given this headline, I think those would be some things that you would have to look at when it comes to the Georgia quarterback room if they are to potentially have a shaky start at some point in time early in the college football season. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.